We're so excited that your community is interested in partnering with the Transition Quality Empowerment Project. The purpose of the Transition Quality Empowerment Project is to implement the Transition Discoveries Model. The goal of the Transition Discoveries Model is to empower young people, families, and stakeholders to work together in identifying what works in transition for their community. In this process, they also uncover which practices, programs, and services could be even better. Then, they co-design and implement changes to these practices, programs, and services that reach across schools, agencies, and community partners. Because all voices are heard at all steps of the process, the solutions designed and implemented are maximized for the specific strengths and needs of each community. It's then even more possible to effectively adapt current evidence-based practices, programs, and services in the field to a community's needs. Throughout the entire project, sites will have access to support from the George Washington University, Peel Center, the Pennsylvania Youth Leadership Network, and the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network. Together, these partners help young people and families increase their knowledge of transition and their leadership in how transition is designed and provided in the community. Communities also have support to youth, families, and stakeholders as they learn how to design and implement improvements to current transition programs across schools, agencies, and the community. Designing and implementing improvements requires young people, families, and stakeholders to build additional knowledge about transition as well as their leadership and collaboration skills. For stakeholders, there is the Transition Discoveries online professional curriculum that teaches them evidence-based practices in transition for each of the 9 domains within the Transition Discoveries Quality Indicator Framework. These domains are transition planning, youth development, person-directed planning, family engagement, relationships, independent living and community engagement, cross-agency collaboration, employment, and post-secondary education. The framework, created by over 500 young people, families, and stakeholders in Pennsylvania, explains what effective transition practices and programs include. Each site will be implementing improvements related to one or more of these 9 categories. The Transition Discoveries Model also includes a complete hybrid transition curriculum for use with students and young people with disabilities, and it utilizes these evidence-based practices all while being aligned with the Common Core and the Transition Discoveries Quality Indicator Framework. Because improving transition at a systems level is an art, but also a science, the Transition Discoveries Model includes all of the tools that communities need to collect information about how practices can be improved, make a plan, and implement it effectively. Stakeholders will have access to all the training needed to become an expert in Transition Discovery's model of data-driven systems change. In addition, young people also have leadership training and mentorship opportunities through the Pennsylvania Youth Leadership Network, all while families have access to training and workshops designed and hosted by the Peel Center. Here we have the entire Transition Discoveries implementation model. If it looks a bit complex, don't worry. We're about to unpack each stage and component together. Before we do, keep in mind that each stage builds directly upon the work of the previous stage. It's only possible to move forward once all objectives and activities in each stage are completed. The Transition Discoveries model begins with pre-work. Pre-work consists of establishing the Transition Discoveries implementation team, and then this team completing one online training module that covers everything there is to know about getting started with the project, and specifically Stage 1 of Transition Discoveries. There are several key roles on the team. The team champion should spend the most amount of time reviewing this online training and becoming the internal expert on the implementation process. Your team champion is the one who becomes the team's internal coach and oversees implementation, making sure that all objectives are planned and met. In some cases, not all team members will have the capacity to complete pre-work. However, When this occurs, it is the job of the team champion to ensure that their fellow team members have a full understanding of implementing TD. The additional 3 TD implementation team members include the stakeholder with transition knowledge, district administrator or special education coordinator, and community or agency partner. This last role is optional, and the rest of the roles are required in order to implement transition discoveries. Once your initial training is complete, you'll begin implementing Stage 1, which is collecting systems-level data from young people with disabilities, families, and stakeholders across schools, agencies, and community partners about what's currently working for transition practices, programs, and services, and what can be improved. This is completed through the Transition Discoveries Quality Indicator Survey metric, also known as the TDQI. The TDQI is an online survey designed through rigorous research to capture detailed information about effective transition practices and what can be improved from the experiences and perspectives of young people, families, and stakeholders. The TDQI collects this information at a systems level across schools, agencies, and community partners. Stage 2 is all about the TD implementation team reviewing the results, not analysis, of the TDQI data and identifying priorities for improving specific areas of transition practices and programs in their community. The team is provided with a full-featured data visualizer and guided process to accomplish this goal. The priorities identified in the data during Stage 2 will then be addressed through action plan development and implementation later on in the model. Stage 3 is all about establishing the Transition Change Agent Team, or TCAT. This team is comprised of several young people with disabilities, family members of young people, and transition stakeholders, who together during Stage 4 will lead a community-wide action planning event based upon the priority areas identified during Stage 2. Your team will learn TD's unique community action planning event approach, and then will use a trainer guide to teach the Transition Change Agent team members how to run the event confidently. Your team will plan logistics and implement efforts to invite young people, families, and stakeholders from schools, agencies, and across the community to attend this event. Last and most importantly, we have Stage 4, creating and implementing the Community Action Plan. Here is where the TCAT leads the community action planning event with additional young people, families, and stakeholders from your area. Your team will support the logistics of this event and recruiting people to attend. The community action planning event can be virtual, face-to-face, or both, and will follow a research-based collaborative inquiry process created by Transition Discoveries. During this process, young people with disabilities, families, and stakeholders will complete group activities that help them unpack what transition practices are currently working well, what programs or opportunities don't currently exist but could, and a detailed plan for how this dream program can be designed and implemented in the community. Once this detailed plan is created, your Transition Discoveries implementation team will collaborate with the TCAT and community members who attended the event to implement the activities required to make this change a reality.